In October 1962, the existence of the world was threatened. Experts examining photographs of Cuba taken by U-2 spy planes saw what they believed to be evidence that the Russians were building nuclear missile sites in Cuba. It was the beginning of a confrontation that took the world to the brink of a nuclear holocaust. In 1962, the Cold War was at its coldest. The Russians had built the Berlin Wall the previous year. Kennedy, who had been elected because he promised to get tough with the communists, felt that Khrushchev had got one over on him at the Vienna summit in 1961. In April 1962, the Americans put nuclear missiles in Turkey. In 1959, a rebel named Fidel Castro took power in Cuba, an island just 90 miles away from Florida. Before Castro took over, the government led by Colonel Batista had been a corrupt and right-wing military dictatorship, but the Americans had many business interests in Cuba. In April 1961, with Kennedy's knowledge, the CIA funded, trained, armed and transported 1,300 Cuban exiles to invade Cuba. They landed at the Bay of Pigs and made an attempt to overthrow Castro. The invasion was a disaster, and President Kennedy was humiliated. In September 1961, Castro asked for and Russia publicly promised weapons to defend Cuba against America, which is why on 14 October 1962, the Americans discovered the missile sites in Cuba. These sites brought every town in the U.S. within range of Soviet nuclear missiles. President Kennedy called a meeting of the National Security Council and on 22 October went on TV to tell the American people that they were under threat. 22 October, Kennedy orders American warships to blockade Cuba. He tells Khrushchev that American troops will search for Cuba. If they are carrying missiles, they will be made to turn back. 23 October, Khrushchev tells Soviet ships will ignore the blockade. 24 October, the Soviet ships carrying missiles get closer to the American blockade. All of a sudden, the Soviet ships stop and turn around. Khrushchev sent a second letter demanding the dismantling of the Turkish bases. At the vital moment, a U.S. U-2 spy plane was shot down. U.S. missile sites in Turkey were dismantled in November 1962. The Cuban Missile Crisis was the closest the world ever came to nuclear war.